Thank you all so much for joining us today for today's edition of TAASA Talks. It's been a while since we've done this, but we have a lot to share. So before we get started, my name is Rose Luna. I'm the CEO of the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, and I'm so excited to be joined by this amazing team. The policy team will start there. We have Liz Boyce, who's the Director of Policy and Legal, followed by Ashley and Samantha, who are our Senior Policy Advisor and Policy Advisor, respectively, and then the amazing, famous Courtney Kawa, our member liaison. So very excited to have you all here. Just wanted really quick, we are in the thick of things over at the Capitol, that just everything's starting to happen now. We're going to get into what's happening with our bills, but I will say that it's exciting to kind of see all the folks, the different groups that are showing up at the Capitol to support or oppose different bills. And I think this is a really good time for you all who are interested to learn about how does a bill become a law? How do we make an impact? What's the role of the regular person? I think you kind of see that through the committee hearings and hearing what they say, and then also seeing how our lawmakers vote based on what they heard. Are they just kind of making that connection? It's just an exciting thing, and I think that you all would welcome you all to do that. But I'll hand it over to Courtney, and we're excited to share the news of everything going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Rose. All right, y'all. So, as you know, TAASA Talks got a few questions for y'all. Starting with the monies, are there any updates on the budget?
Well, the budget, for those of you that saw this particular TAASA Talks, our last edition, we are still in the same space. We are in a good place with the money. We're in the base budget. Again, and this is the SAPCS state dollars. So for those of you that are sexual assault programs, you know exactly what that is. You all have also seen the application kits come out from the Office of the Attorney General. So that money, we're off to a good start. We did ask for an increase. It's in there. So we're very excited about what that means for sexual assault survivors, adult sexual assault survivors. And just a reminder that, when we ask for this money, the first thing we do is we do surveys to figure out what's happening on the ground. None of the asks ever come just from myself or from Liz or Samantha or Ashley. It's like what's happening. We do everything we can to find out what is happening on the ground. And it's the same thing with the dollars. So we're very excited about getting that ask in, testifying on behalf of adult sexual assault survivors, and also conveying the message that you all do amazing work and could use some more resources to address adult sexual assault survivors. So the application kits are out. We're excited to see how we can help in that process. Some of you have already reached out, but just wanted to put a reminder out there that this money is for adult sexual assault survivors. It's written in statute. The bill pattern makes it very clear. And then the OAG's office, of course, they're charged with making sure that money is used as the legislature intended. So again, any questions on that, we're here and happy to help. And I will be talking with some of you about this later this week and next week. So yeah, that's it. So good news on the budget.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rose. So folks, what's going on at the Capitol these days? What's happening?
One of the biggest things that happened recently was the bill filing deadline. That was on March 10th, which is the 60th day of the legislative session. And that is the last day that any members of the House or Senate can file legislation. There are some exceptions for emergency items or certain local bills, but it's very rare for those to be filed later in session. This session, there were 7,865 bills filed, which beat the all-time record by 446 bills. I would like to point out, though, that just because more bills are filed, it doesn't necessarily mean more bills will pass. The recent trends over the last few legislative sessions is that number of bills filed is going higher and number of bills passed is actually going down.
Oh, wow.
Jeez. So kudos to TAASA, because last year we got all our stuff passed.
Except for one.
This year we're off to a good, except for one. Oops. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, it's been knock on wood. It's been refiled. It has been refiled by Senator Eckhart. But so and that happens. I think that the statistics show, back me up here, Samantha and Ashley, it takes like 2 sessions or whatever, average a lot of times to get an initiative through. So yeah, that's not it's not unusual for a bill to die. Certainly, as Ashley just pointed out, it happens frequently that bills die for various reasons. And we were just really fortunate. We've been fortunate for many sessions in a row that most of our bills have passed. So fingers crossed that happens again. So yeah, and speaking of our bills, Samantha, do you have any updates on what's going on in our bills?
Definitely. So now that we've passed the bill filing deadline, committees are in full swing. So hearings happening every day of the week almost. We've worked with our bill authors to get in our hearing requests for all of our bills. So that's working with the different committees that our bills have been referred to see if we can get those heard as soon as possible, because, there's deadlines coming up, and, end of session comes a lot sooner than you think it does. So we've been very lucky and fortunate to work with both Democrats and Republicans and get our bills filed in both chambers, which speaks wonders to our team. So, and the bipartisan nature of these initiatives that we have. In the House, we've gotten our bills filed or referred to the Homeland Security and Public Safety committees, as well as the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee. And in the Senate, they have all three been referred to the Criminal Justice Committee. So none have been set for a date so far to be heard, but we're doing our best. So.
And I just wanted to give a quick update on SB 819, which is one of our priorities. The last time we spoke, we let y'all know that we had a Senate author, and we were still waiting to find a House author. Right before bill filing deadline, we were very excited to have Representative Synfronius Thompson out of Houston accept this and agree to carry this in the House. And so that has been filed now in both chambers, just as Samantha said. So moving forward, we're in a very good position on our priorities. So we're very, very grateful to our authors, both in the House and the Senate.
Wonderful. That's such great news, y'all. So are there any updates for the Sexual Assault Survivors Task Force policy recommendations?
Yes, and as some of you know, TAASA sits on the task force, the Governor's Office Sexual Assault Survivors Task Force that was put into being about, this is our fourth year that we're getting started. Getting this important work done with all of our statewide partners, and CAC Texas sits with us on the steering team, and really we work very closely together with that agency in getting these policy recommendations fulfilled. And so one of the ones that TAASA has on our plate that we're really focused on right now is updating consent, the definition of consent. That is something that is an ongoing conversation. Every year, I feel like we have additional tweaks and changes to that statute. And so, what we're really trying to do is close that justice gap that exists between, we know that out of, the over 6 million Texans that have had an instance of sexual assault in their life, only 10% or less actually go forward through an investigation. A fraction of that go forward through a prosecution. So we've been trying to figure out, over the years, how do we make that, how do we close that gap? How do we make that better for survivors, that process? And so there's a lot of things that we do about that. And one of which is to, try to make this sexual assault statute more useful. And how do we make it to where it's clear enough that prosecutors are able to successfully reach conviction on these cases that we see occurring. So all that to say, consent is kind of one of our biggest barriers to successful prosecutions because it's somewhat vague. And in the way that it's written, our statute doesn't actually say what consent is. It says what it is not. And it has a bunch of boxes that it sets out that, it's not consent if it's violent, if it's not consent if there's, a weapon used, that it's not consent if it's a teacher or a coach. We've got all of these different boxes that we've set out there to define what it isn't. So one of the things that this particular priority does is it actually puts in a definition for consent, that it is express or apparent assent. And so what that means is it'll be easier for prosecutors to prove up that consent wasn't given. In addition, it will add a reasonable person standard, and what that means is it's going to say that the defendant knew or should have known that the victim was, for instance, too intoxicated to consent. This, again, is something we see in child abuse cases and other types of criminal cases where we see sort of a criminal negligence standard. And so, it again makes it a bit easier for prosecutors to get their the evidence that they need to prosecute these cases and hopefully close that justice gap. So the update there is that in this case, we have the consent policy recommendation that's been, thank you for the numbers. I was waiting for the numbers to come up. I don't have them memorized yet. They have been filed in both the House and the Senate, and it's HB 2696. Representative Donna Howard is carrying it in the House, and Senate Bill 2169, and Senator Alvarado is carrying that in the Senate. And we are very, very, very grateful to both of those electeds to do this for us, to carry this very important initiative for us. It's going to make a huge difference, we think, in how these cases are handled by prosecutors.
Thank you for that insight into the consent bill. Sorry.
No, I think that was great. I have one other one I'd like to mention is we have an ER training bill that the task force has recommended for this session. So kind of like the word sound, it's requiring additional hours of training for ER medical and admin staff. So they need to be trained on victims' rights, evidence collection protocols, and then trauma-informed care. It's only 2 hours for medical staff and then 1 hour additional for admin, but we think that'll go a long way in helping victims. This bill has actually now been referred to the Public Health Committee back on the 13th. So we know they've received our hearing request, and we are just waiting for that to be set for a date. If there's something y'all want to do to help us, please feel free to reach out to Chairwoman Stephanie Click's office. Things get crazy. March is truly crazy for committees, so that would really help us a lot.
It's the other
Yeah.
March Madness.
Yeah, exactly. exactly. So, the sooner the better. But that's what's going on there.
Thank you, Samantha.
Mm-hmm.
So, are there any bills that y'all are excited about?
There is one that we are very excited about, and it is actually in hearing right now in Senate Finance. It is SB 1244 by Senator Joan Huffman, and it would create a new source of revenue for the Sexual Assault Program Fund. As many of you know, the balance of this fund has been a bit unpredictable based on the sources of revenue that go into that fund. And SB 1244 would create a more stability to the fund by requiring 1% of mixed beverage tax revenue to go into that fund. This is great news for all of our rape crisis centers and programs that receive money from this fund. And I will add that, as you know, the chair of Senate Finance carrying this bill in the Senate and the chair of House Appropriations carrying it in the House, I think there's a very good chance that this will become law. And that's very exciting.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ashley.
Anything we can do to make that fund increase, the better.
Your part, mixed beverages.
And how great that both, like Ashley, as you mentioned, I'm not saying this right, but the leaders of each side, the Senate Finance and House Appropriations, the fact that this is a priority for them, that they've put this bill together. I mean, I think that speaks volume. I'm not, again, as familiar with the whole process, but all I know is that when you have the two leaders on each side coming together for this purpose, that says a lot about the great work happening across the state for sexual assault survivors. And I think the work that you all are doing, and just really appreciate their support. I think that's amazing.
Absolutely.
So I know we ask this question every TAASA Talks, but for the folks watching, are there ways to engage in supporting TAASA's policy priorities?
Absolutely. And we 100% want to hear from you. You've heard us talk today and in other TAASA Talks about our priorities, about the bills that are important to us, that we think are going to make a huge impact. And what we really, really need right now, as you've heard about the hearings that are being heard, the hearings that are being set, we need people to testify. We need advocates. We need survivors. We need people who can share experiences from the real world about why these are important and how they're going to make a change and a lasting impact on the lives of survivors. So if any of these bills resonate with you, we would really love to hear from you, and just email us, let us know that you'd really like to testify. It unfortunately means you would have to be coming to the Capitol to do that. But if you can do that, we will be here to support you, walk you where you need to go, find the room that you need to go to, hold your hand if you get a little nervous. Rose knows what that's like.
Oh my God, yes.
it can be nerve-wracking, but we're here to support you, and your voice makes a huge difference. The legislators need to hear from y'all. So if you have a story to share, an experience to let people know about, that's one big way that you can help. Now, alternatively, you just kind of want to be a silent supporter. Join our listserv. We're here to give you information, and maybe you grow in that advocacy, and that's fine too. So anyway, just let us know if you have any questions, and we're here for you.
Thank you, Liz. And thanks all of y'all for all that insight as to what's going on at the Capitol, the update on the TAASA priorities, as well as what's going on with the Sexual Assault Task Force priorities. This was great. Rose, you want to take it away?
I just want to just end by, again, showing gratitude to the elected officials across the board. I mean, this is one of those issues that we are very thankful that, they may not agree on other issues, but boy, does everybody agree that they want resources in their community, that they want sexual assault survivors to get the support that they need. So that's a really great thing. So very thankful to each of those elected officials. And also, I think this is a learning thing. This is the last thing I'll say. This is a learning opportunity for us. Like Liz, you mentioned the consent bill. I think there may be a lot of people out there that didn't know, like we have these presumptions or assumptions of here's what the law says. But to know that consent basically doesn't even define, the consent law doesn't define consent. It defines what it isn't, and then how that makes it really difficult to get things through the process. So just learning about, here are tweaks in the law that are very impactful that can be made. We're working on that now, but also for next legislative session, because we're always looking ahead. Those are things that we are looking to improve, and if you all have ideas on that, we will be coming to ask your opinion. But just wanted to put that out there about the learning, and also just to show gratitude to our elected officials across the board, all across the state of Texas. They are all supporting the issue, and we are very thankful to them.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Rose. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll catch you at the next TAASA Talks.